The main reason why it's collapsing and that they're having a rethink and there's almost a little mini rebellion in their camp is because they have a theory and they expect certain things to happen. They expect things to happen randomly. They don't expect them to happen very purposefully. So you're not expecting predictable changes in organisms, but one study after another, literally hundreds of different types of studies, are coming in showing that adaptation is a highly regulated, it's rapid, it's not this slow, gradual thing which they predicted according to their theory. And many times the responses are so targeted to the challenge in the environment, they're even predictable.
Welcome to the Creation Today Show, where we bring together interviews with experts and solid Bible teaching. Your host, Eric Hovind, affirms the ultimate authority of God's Word, the truth of creation, and why it matters to you.
What if, just what if, creatures, animals, and plants were actually engineered to anticipate, respond to, and track changes in their environment, not by accident, but completely by design? Today, we're sitting down with a man shaking the very foundations of mainstream biology. His revolutionary theory isn't just a scientific breakthrough, it's a complete paradigm shift. According to his theory, creatures don't adapt by random mutation and natural selection over eons and eons of time with this clumsy trial and error technique. Instead, they track, anticipate, and even respond to environmental shifts in real time. And they're using a built-in logic system, like engineered features that function like software and sensors and feedback loops, design. And if that sounds too intelligent for nature to have figured out on its own, well, that's the point. He's not just rewriting the textbooks, he is flipping the Darwinian script and putting the glory back where it belongs, in the hands of the Creator. So buckle up, this isn't just a conversation, it's a reckoning. And the one evolutionary biologists pray that you'll never hear. If you guys are new to the Creation Today show, I'm your host, Eric Hovind, and we are on a mission to disciple the world one person at a time. And today, that's you. We want to turn your stumbling blocks that keep people from seeing and hearing Jesus as the creator and the redeemer of mankind into stepping stones on your journey to know the real truth. Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life. To my social media viewers out there, if you like what you hear, please hit those like, follow, and subscribe buttons while we explore creation today. Now let's start the reckoning. Today we're joined by the president of the Institute for Creation Research and the leading voice in biological design theory. He is the man leading ICR's groundbreaking scientific research in developing a full theory of biological design. He brings incredibly deep insights and just powerful insights into the evidence for design, for intelligent design, and he does that through the scriptures, through the living word. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to present to you, and I hope you'll welcome with me, Dr. Randy Guliuzza. Dr. G, welcome to the Creation Today show, my friend.
Oh, thank you. What a great introduction. So good. Thank you very much.
I have been listening to you talk about this for, I want to say, somewhere around 15 years. I remember being on a call with you years and years ago, and just kind of presenting a concept, and I went, "Oh my goodness, I think we're onto something." And you've actually taken this concept and really developed it. How long have you actually been working on this kind of theory that puts the glory back where it belongs, in the hands of the Creator?
Well, it's probably been at least 12, 14 years, 12 to 14 years. So somewhere in there. It's been a long time.
This is exciting. Now, why do you think, and if you're going to get to this in our presentation, just let me know you're going to get to it if I'm jumping the gun here. Why is the Darwin's theory scientifically collapsing right now? What's going on with that?
Well, the main reason why it's collapsing and that they're having a rethink and there's almost a little mini rebellion in their camp is because they have a theory and they expect certain things to happen. They expect things to happen randomly. They don't expect them to happen very purposefully. So you're not expecting predictable changes in organisms, but one study after another, literally hundreds of different types of studies, are coming in showing that adaptation, and that's what we're talking about today, is adaptation, is a highly regulated process, and it's rapid. It's not this slow, gradual thing which they predicted according to their theory. It's predictable, and many times the responses are so targeted to the challenge in the environment that they're even they're, like I say, they're even predictable. So it's not fitting with their theory at all.
I said this after seeing you just recently at the Creation Research Society meeting, which that was my very first one. And I got to tell you, after hearing all you guys present, some of it I got, some of it right over my head, but it is a good time to be a creation scientist. Would you agree with that
Oh,
concept with everything going on in science today?
yes. It's always been a good time. And then it became a great time in terms of geology over the last 40 years. But in the last 5 to 6 years, particularly with biology, which is an area where creation scientists are now starting to get our momentum in terms of biology. And this theory of biological design and the model of adaptation, continuous environmental tracking, as you said, thank you, are leading the way in this because it is a completely different way of thinking. So those who are online today, this is what we're after. Think about biology differently. A theory is going to get you thinking, and we'll get to this on some slides, but that's the main point. We want to change the way we think.
Well, take us on a journey through this concept. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching, I'm just telling you, when you go through this, you're going to have a paradigm shift. All of a sudden, especially those of you that have a naturalistic worldview, if you're an unbeliever or you think, hey, I don't know about this whole God thing, I don't know about this whole design thing, wait until you hear the science as we're discovering now and what the implications are. How has it changed over 14 years of not only developing the theory, but developing how you present it? Well, let me just say, you guys are going to be blown away with the explanation that you're going to hear. I think it's really evolved, if I can use that word, the proper way. It's evolved over the last 14 years to a point where, man, this is so well laid out. So, Doc,
Great.
we're all yours.
Sure. I want to pick up with something that you discussed with me at the CRS. And as you said, this is our topic for today. But the main question for everybody is why in the world should we care? Why should we care about this whole idea of looking at biology from an engineering perspective whatsoever? So, Eric, by just quick way of background, I mentioned this at the CRS and you thought it was really important. And that is that when we're talking about changing the way people think, everyone should know that Darwin changed the way that people think about God. But he didn't do it by coming out and directly criticizing God or saying there wasn't any God. He did it by changing the way people thought about his creatures. And so they're changing the way people think about the creator by changing the way we understand his creatures. And what he and those who have followed him have done is basically say creatures are a natural product and that they are just essentially cobbled together. And that they're full of vestigial parts, they're full of a work, they're just simply a work in progress, and that they're there due to a struggle to survive. And so that picture of creatures as basically being full of broken parts, a continuous work in progress, nothing really special about them, changed the way people thought about God, and they changed it for the worse. And so there was no wonder that people started to say, well, maybe we don't even need God at all if he's even involved in anything. Who wants to serve a God who would do something like this? And so, in many ways, Darwin's theory was anti-design because, in so many ways, it just changed the way we saw God. So, you wanted to discuss that after we talked in our meeting. So, I wanted to bring this out for all the people who are watching today. And
And I
number
want to get
two,
back to that
yeah,
I
that's a
want to get back to that when
biggie.
you present.
Yeah, that's so good. Um, and 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 then we have to talk about what it is for general revelation, because you mentioned that this was a biblical worldview. It's not just a scientific worldview; it's a biblical worldview. And so in this case, what everybody is seeing, what people saw before Darwin was that they saw the engineered workmanship in creatures. And that was a strong testimony that creatures were, in fact, created by God. Now, where do we find that biblically? Well, in Psalm 19, verses 1 to 3, it says the creation, and particularly the firmament, declares his handiwork. And not just his glory, not just that he's there. And all of that is really important, but it's a complete revelation, including his handiwork. And what's interesting in that passage is that David says that they don't speak, but they are speaking, and people are really hearing them on that. And then Paul picks up on that same theme in Romans chapter 1, verse 20. And these are the two main passages in Scripture which are speaking about the general revelation of God, where Paul says, invisible things of him, that is the creator, are visible from the creation of the world. In fact, they're clearly seen, they're plain, and they're understood by the things that are made. And as I mentioned at the CRS, that Greek word is used only one other time in the New Testament in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, where it says we are his workmanship. So Paul is circling back right again with David that says we see the work of God, we see it by his handiwork and all the things that he has made. And so I would say, when we're looking at handiwork, this rock, it has a level of handiwork, but in some ways it's kind of a debatable type of workmanship. But clearly the heavens do show a breathtaking type of workmanship that's out there. There's timing, there's precision, there's regularity, and all of these things. But in my view, what really is screaming to all of the creatures is this: living living creatures, which everybody on the planet has always seen, just show an incredible, unimaginable level of workmanship. And you don't have to have a telescope. You don't have to have a microscope. You just look at the birds. You just look at the fish. You just look at newborn babies. You look at these things, and it is telling you that this is really, really created. So the workmanship is everywhere on this planet. And I would suggest that when people are looking at those things, the birds, the fish, the baby, they're seeing all of the characteristics of workmanship as if they were looking at an operating engine, only with so much, much more detail on that. They're seeing the numerous interconnected parts, the particular arrangement of those parts, the proper alignment, the moving parts, precise timing, and so on and so forth. And that is what everybody is really seeing in the world around them today.
I do find it interesting, Dr. Guliuzza, that we have had to break down the thought of what does workmanship actually look like. To be able to say, okay, it's numerous interconnected parts like you're showing. It's having those it's the fact that we have had to do that to try to prove to people there is a crafter, there is a creator, there's somebody who did this, is almost mind-boggling to me. And I guess I realize in today's culture, I was asked this in a service as a Q&A this Sunday, how do we know there's evidence for a creator? And I'm like, isn't it the fact that we've had to break this down blows my mind? Isn't it really obvious? So I find this interesting, but I'm glad we've had to do it. We've done the work of going all the way down to okay, let me get all the bare definitions for you. Let's really lay the groundwork.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, they intuitively see these things in living creatures. They see precise timing with creatures. They see moving parts. They see all of these things. It's good to articulate it. And in the past, everybody just intuitively knew this is what is the evidence of handiwork from a workman of any type. Evolutionists, of course, say that all of these things can come about by natural processes, but they're incorrect. The only place you see numerous interconnected parts are, one, when human beings create an engine. That's when you see it. And number two, you see it in living creatures. But you never see it. You never see nature, aside from living creatures, which is the thing we're trying to explain anyway. You never see nature in and of itself put together numerous parts. You don't even see it put together two parts. And so you see all of these things in living creatures, you see it in living things, And that takes us to what I think general revelation really is. And general revelation, which is really speaking aloud to everybody, it's the engineered workmanship. It's more than just design. It's engineered. And anybody can design something. You and I could draw something on a napkin and we design it. But what engineering does is it ensures that it works, and it works efficiently, and it works in an optimized way. So, design is really too soft a word. Creatures are highly engineered, highly, highly engineered. And when we see the corresponding things of engineered workmanship and man-made things, and they're operating in the same way in living creatures, I mean, that's really undeniable evidence that the creatures themselves were also engineered. And in my opinion, it's the primary, and as they say on the screen, the undeniable revelation of Christ's power, the power to do this, his genius to even think it up to begin with at such an incredible level, and his wisdom in order to get so many competing needs. And that's what engineering is able to do. It's able to solve competing needs, that you need something to be strong, but you need it to be light. You need things like that. And that shows wisdom, the wisdom to be able to do this. And so, general revelation, though not sufficient unto salvation, it is a glorious way that the Lord reveals himself in a very tangible way that you and I can experience.
That's beautiful. Well put. Love it.
Yeah, it is so good. And the status quo amongst creationists, which of course is articulated in the classic work by William Paley, Natural Theology, is that creatures looked designed because they are designed. Or as we would say today, they look engineered because they are engineered. Unfortunately, the status quo today is, and this is what we need to change. We've been saying for 40 plus years that, well, Darwin's mechanism is true. In other words, we conceded random mutations. We were conceding the personification of nature by saying that nature can select, or nature only works on, or nature only acts on. We were conceding his mechanism, but then we were just saying it's insufficient. It can't do everything that Darwin's claiming it's doing. What we didn't realize at the time is just by conceding the mechanism, we're changing the way people think about God, because we're changing the way they think about the creatures, because we're telling people that the random mutations, the brokenness, the purposelessness that evolutionists are telling is fine, but we were conceding way, way, way too much. And in fact, all we were doing was promoting a lighter version of evolution, and thinking that if we say it's just insufficient, that's enough. What we need to do now is dump it, lock, stock, and barrel. Lock, stock, and barrel. It's gone. It doesn't even get you on the right playing field to even start to think that way. And we need to start thinking about creatures in a radically different way. In other words, it's not just enough to have an article that says antis defy evolution. No, that's true. Antis do defy evolution, but let's explain the engineering mechanism behind antis, and that'll glorify the Lord Jesus Christ even more than just saying, it's inconsistent, or it's insufficient, it's inaccurate, it's incomplete. Let's explain what is really going on in this world around us, and let's come up with a biblically consistent theory of biological design that helps creationists take the lead in asking very specific research questions and setting very precise research agendas, so that we're now out in front, we're framing the debate, we're framing the discussion of what's going on, and not just simply responding. Does that make sense?
Oh man, this is what makes me say it's a great time to be alive, because we finally have the right perspective to view everything. Because you're right, Christians, even Christians for far too long have opted to, and this is what I want to get to later, have opted to believe, okay, if it is survival of the fittest, okay, well, how should I then act? How then shall we live if it really is survival of the fittest? This changes everything. This is powerful.
It is powerful. And I'll just put a parenthesis in my thought here. Survival of the fittest got us derailed as well, because it put us into a death-driven worldview.
Yes.
Death-driven worldview. And then we began to explain everything from the fall. But what we should have been doing is recognizing that the Lord made creatures to be adaptable from the beginning of creation. And so instead of going to the fall, in other words, accommodating Darwin's death-driven worldview, we should have been going back to the original creation and saying, however the Lord created these creatures to adapt then is likely the way that they're still adapting today.
That's
And so that's where we're at. That's why all this theological background is really important. And
so
it
now the
helps
question
us.
is, I was gonna say the question is, you got any science to back this up? You got any evidence to back up what you're thinking here?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what this is a question that an evolutionist posed to creationist. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's even more than evidence. He said, here's my number one question for creationists. He's throwing in the intelligent design people here too. What's your research agenda? So he's not even asking about evidence. He's saying, what are you going to do? That is, what do you do next? My biggest problem with this worldview is simply I've not heard, he says there, I've not heard of any positive consequences of research. At best, you try to find troublesome examples and then argue that the standard Darwinian synthesis is insufficient. If you just say God designed it, then that seems to be a research inhibitor. Then you can just stop looking. What new research does this hypothesis help you do? What would creationists do with a $5 million research grant? And
Good
so
questions.
that's a great question. That's a good challenge to us. What are we going to do if we were given all this money? So if you turn to this, and those people can take a screenshot or whatever, this is the paper that lays out at the ICC a lot of what I'm going to talk about in much, much more detail. So if you leave it here for a second, everybody can get a screenshot of that. But if you want more detail, want more pictures, this is the paper that does it. So where are we going to head today? And we have to move along smartly here a little bit on that. Where are we going to head today? First, I'm going to define for everybody a scientific theory. Then I'm going to identify what needs to be explained. What's the main thing we have to talk about? I'm going to give only just one example of engineered adaptability due to our time. And then I'm going to go through not every point on this transformative framework, but some of the main points so that everybody can get an idea of what it means to think differently about things. So, what is a scientific theory? Well, scientific theory, it doesn't mean just a guess. It's really a conglomeration of a history of ideas that are put into a framework that help us think about what we're seeing. It helps us organize our thoughts on, particularly about the big questions in a scientific area. So there's the evolutionists have a theory of how the universe began. It's called Big Bang. So it's Big Bang theory. It's a theory because it answers a huge question: where did we come? Evolutionists come up with a theory for the origin of life. It's not very good, of course, and neither is Big Bang, by the way, but it helps them to answer big questions. But the second thing it really helps them do is interpret what they're seeing around them. So when they see an adaptation, they think about it in a specific way. What this program is to do today is to get us to come up with a alternative theory that answers the big questions in biology and changes the way we see things and how we're going to interpret what's happening around us, particularly in terms of adaptation. Second, the big thing that needs to be explained is not just the diversity of life on Earth. Everybody from the beginning of creation knew that that's not just it. It's the fact that creatures look so highly engineered. That's what needs to be explained. And that was the primary evidence, as we've already seen, the workmanship for the existence of God. Now, this evolutionist, he's an evolutionary philosopher, he gets it. He says, and he recognizes correctly, that it's the apparent design. Of course, he says apparent. He doesn't think it's real design. In his mind, it's apparent design because selection did it. But it's the apparent design of organisms and their relationship between the organism and their environment. These are the big questions, the amazing facts of biology. So clearly, he sees that organisms look highly engineered, and he sees that they fit their environment really well. Then All creationists should get this. Explaining these phenomena is the core intellectual mission of evolutionary theory. Evolutionary theory was put together for a purpose. It was to explain why creatures look so highly engineered without appealing to the engineer. So, creationists, this is why evolutionary theory is such a fundamental threat. It is going right against general revelation. And then he gives the answer. Natural selection is the key to solving those problems. And this is all of these italics are his italics. Selection is the big answer.
Wow.
That makes sense. And so that's why you can't compromise with selection, because the personification of nature to select, act on, and favor is the way you get highly engineered creatures. Without an engineer, you project onto nature a type of intelligence that can select, that can see, save, and all of these other things work on and the like. So this is why the theory is so important that we reject it. And that's why it's so important that we come up with an alternative theory to explain it, not just try to punch holes in why their theory is weak. We need to show why their theory is fundamentally flawed and come up with a better theory for that.
Enough defense, time for offense. Yes.
That's it. So this is what everybody sees. He sees it. Everybody sees it. We see design and purpose. They go hand in hand. Engineers build things for a purpose, and that's why they design it. And the design is always built on those things for a purpose. And we see an overwhelming appearance of it in creatures. We see their purposeful behavior. We see how well they fit their environments. We see birds seem to fit the air environment so well. How do you explain that? You better come up with an explanation for how that happens. And in terms of adaptation, that's what we're going to talk about today. And then I want to give an example of CETs, since I did a previous talk on CVST on a program with you. I just want to give one example because it kind of illustrates what we're talking about here. So at previous scientific conferences, I put together a large poster that explains everything. And this is what you do to try to present your ideas and get it peer reviewed by your colleagues here. And as you mentioned at the introduction, organisms are using sensors, and they have innate logic, and they have an innate ability to respond, just like the people who are watching the show can see that autonomous car that General Motors built on the left. It's an older one, but I love it because it still shows the sensors are just all over it. And if you and I could take a cell and blow it up so everybody could see it, there would literally be thousands of little sensors all over the cell. Biologists call them receptors, but what they really are is they're sensors. And if we could dig inside, we would see the logic, and we would see how organisms are able to adapt. And if any one of those things are missing, if you can't sense what's happening around you, if you can't have a way to respond to that, and if there isn't some kind of logic telling you what to do, you can't respond. You're not adaptable. Ergo, I predict that organisms are using those exact same elements in order to respond to the world around them. So on the right-hand side of the screen, it says that these guinea pigs tweak their own DNA as they respond to climate change. This was a great little experiment. They took some male guinea pigs, put them in a cage, and heated them up as if they were undergoing a hot environment. And they took these male guinea pigs and they mated them with female guinea pigs that were not put in a hot environment. And then she had pups. And then they were able to check the expression of genes afterwards. And in this case, all of the pups, so there wasn't any death and survival. All of the pups lived, and all of the pups showed a change of expression of at least 18 genes, and these 18 genes related to thermoregulation. And not only did the pups have them, but dad also had these tweaks in their expression. So dad was doing it in real time, and dad was able to pass this information on to the pups in one generation. There was no death. There was no struggle to survive. And as far as we know, since this was done by an epigenetic mechanism, it's a highly regulated mechanism. So a theory of biological design predicts that we're going to find these corresponding elements between man-made things and God-made things, and they're operating in the same engineered way, which makes it very, very hard to deny that one was designed, but the other wasn't.
This, this is beautiful. I wish social media and my television and podcast audience could watch the rest of what you're about to get into, because this is groundbreaking. Listen, I know everybody out there, you want to confidently trust that real science supports God's word. And yet, we are all dealing with a culture that for years now, generations, has consistently bombarded us with evolutionary ideas, telling us we're just the result of random mutations and chance. And that kind of message leaves us feeling confused, unsure, even ashamed of standing on the truth of the Bible as our authority. We all see this all the time, and it's wrong. Thankfully, I'm so thankful for Dr. Guliuzza, ICR, our minister Creation Today, the other creation ministries out there that are helping millions of people around the world discover the truth that real science is not only consistent with Scripture, it powerfully confirms it. Dr. Guliuzza is doing research because he cares deeply about equipping you with the tools you need to stand firm in your faith and understand the way God actually created the world. And I tell you what you should do. I got to let you go, but what you should do is you should take the next steps in equipping yourself. Step number one, you should sign up for the newsletters. You can go to icr.org and creationtoday.org and get on the mailing list. ICR has an incredible acts and facts that they will send you absolutely free. You need to get on that so you can continue learning this information that strengthens your faith and you can strengthen your faith by watching the videos, the articles, the interviews, the podcasts they do. They put out a lot of incredible resources. Second, you should share the truth. Talk to your friends, talk to your kids, talk to your coworkers, have this discussion at your church, read the articles, text out a link, throw it out on social media, because you don't change culture by staying silent. You change it by speaking up. And then number three, I would invite you to join us. Would you support the mission of ICR by helping them spread the truth to the next generation? Would you not only get on their mailing list, would you decide to give a monthly donation to help the research they're literally doing? He's going to tell us about it in the second half. They're literally doing this research right now. And they're not getting the government. They didn't get the $5 million government grant. Would love for you to support the work that they were doing. So if I were you, I'd follow those three steps and I'd do it today. Sign up, share, and support, because listen, if you don't, not only will you not get connected to more powerful truths that equip you, but the lies of evolution are going to continue to shape the hearts and minds of people around you. And we don't want that. We want them to know the truth that sets them free. So let's stand together boldly, faithfully, and unashamedly on the foundation of Scripture as we bring truth back to the center of our culture. Next week on the Creation Today show, we're going to go into this concept of engineering with Professor Andy McIntosh, while the bombardier beetle blows up evolution. This is still a little bit, it's actually both. It's a defensive, evolution can't explain this, and it's offensive. Look how amazing this thing is designed by the creator. So I'm excited about this. Dr. Guliuzza, is there anywhere else you want them to go, or do you think signing up and partnering with you guys right there at icr.org is the best place to go?
Wow, you summarized that excellently. I couldn't have said it any better. So that's exactly what they need to do.
I would love for you to join the next half of this conversation, where we're going into a lot more details of this new theory that's being presented to the world, and they're going to have to deal with this. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It's groundbreaking. To do that, please come on over to creationtoday.org and just partner with us. Help us spread the gospel around the world. Partner with us for any amount you want, and you get access to not only the rest of this conversation, but all the conversations we have at your fingertips. Would love for you to join us next week. But until now, between now and then, please go share the gospel with somebody who needs to hear it. God bless.